Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to our rapid-paced LinkedIn lab for Penn staff. I'm Joseph Barber of Penn's Career Services. I work with graduate students and postdocs. I also like LinkedIn as a tool because I think it's a great marketing tool. It can be a very annoying tool sometimes with its own different ways. But what we're going to do today is cover a whole bunch of tips that I think are going to be helpful for people to know. We have lots to cover today, so I'm going to sort of run straight into what we're going to be talking about. So I, as you heard, am Dr. Joseph Barber. This is a chicken, which I understand is going to be slightly confusing in terms of what we are thinking about in terms of LinkedIn, chickens, LinkedIn, but it will all make sense hopefully by the end. And if it doesn't, well, then you still have a bit of a chicken, which is nice. In my description for this workshop, I talked about the fact that I was going to give you 5 quick tips for your LinkedIn profile. And actually that's a lie, because for a limited time period, I am actually going to double that. So take advantage of 5 quick tips plus 5 bonus other quick tips for this presentation as we go through and talk about things that you're doing. Now, I've broken them down into things that you can sort of do to your profile, things that you can actively change or tweak so that you're making the use of the branding side of LinkedIn. That's the things on the left here. Now, some of these things you will know, some of the things you will have done, some of the things have been rolling out on LinkedIn since March and have only hit my profile and my ability to do these things in the last few days. On the right are things that we're going to talk about that are just ways to use LinkedIn. So you're sort of making the most of this tool beyond just sort of branding yourself, but things that you can do to highlight and utilize the sort of the research side of it, right? So I always talk about LinkedIn as being part branding, part research. This other side is a little bit of that research as well, so that you can take advantage of that. So with LinkedIn, obviously it's an overtly visual platform in terms of presenting yourself to an audience, right? Branding is all about people seeing that. And so one of the first things to think about is how you're coming across. Now, many of us have the advantage of being in offices where we have official staff photos that we can use for our LinkedIn accounts, which is great. I did notice as I was cruising around registrants for this, a few of you still have the sort of what seems to me like a shower squeegee, no picture thing here. Now, what you'll hear from LinkedIn is that profiles without photos get fewer views than profiles with photos. So if you're going to use this as a branding tool, obviously having a photo is going to be fantastic. Now, get it right is sort of the next step, right? So I don't know how this person was an upside down LinkedIn profile, but it's obviously the wrong impression as it comes to branding. So I'm just going to run through some best practices in terms of making sure that you get your photo right. I have a PhD in animal behavior, so a lot of the way that I think about LinkedIn as a marketing tool is it's a behavior, it's a communication tool. Communication is a behavior, right? So all of these here, all these photos, they're pretty decent photos, but the thing that sort of sets them aside and sets them apart is the fact that they are very distant, right? There's no eye contact here. People are looking behind me or to the side of me, and it kind of freaks me out. And so they're not welcoming. As a highly social species, humans are visual. Their eye contact is important. The smile is disarming. And so making sure that you are connecting with your audience is going to be one aspect of your sort of personal brand. All of these photos here have good eye contact and good smiles, but what they lack is the sort of the good lighting, right? And I think the key to what we've learned from our virtual environment is lighting is so important in the way that we present ourselves. It's one of the reasons I'm dreading to go back to campus, because my windows are all behind my head and my screen. I'm gonna have to change a whole office around to do that. So lighting is the new sort of handshake. It's that good first impression that you're making on people to make sure that they can see you and they can appreciate you. So getting the lighting right is absolutely important. I mentioned handshakes as sort of being an important thing. Now, these photos demonstrate the phantom disembodied hand effect, which always freaks me out. If you have to cut someone else out of your photo, it's the wrong photo to use for LinkedIn, and that's going to be an important thing to share with students especially. The person in the yellow hat and the green t-shirt has positioned their head right next to someone else's groin. It's sort of the wrong sort of priority here, giving the way that the human you want to sort of present yourself. So making sure you are aware of the surroundings as you are positioning yourself in your photos, making sure that you're not one of 7 people in the photo so that no one knows which one is you. These are all going to be important aspects. Too many body parts is one thing. Not having all of your parts that you have presented is another thing, right? So all of these photos down here are the wrong size for the space that LinkedIn provides you. And it's going to be sort of critical to make sure that you are there completely. So what makes a good photo then? These are what I would consider to be great photos, right? I like these because There's greenery in them. I like green. Green is a positive thing. They're smiling, they're direct eye contact, but they're not boring photos, right? They are unique in their own ways, as unique as the people in those photos. And these probably weren't taken by a professional photographer. All you need really is someone with a smartphone with the ability to do that sort of blur background effect, 45 minutes of time of not really minding that you're going to look kind of silly and feel kind of silly, and about 100 photos, and you will have one that you like. And I know people don't like looking at their own photos, but this is something that can easily be done with a phone and 45 minutes of feeling silly. As a animal behaviorist who studied chickens, if you had asked me if you could look professional whilst holding a chicken, I would have said probably not. And then I came across these photos of these two people who look perfectly professional holding a chicken. Now, I'm not recommending that you have chickens in your LinkedIn profile because you kind of need a reason to be holding a chicken, I think, to have it in your professional brand. Probably I need a chicken, but they're hard to get a hold of. But again, they don't have to be boring. You don't have to align with just one version of what you have to look like. There's opportunities out there. After your face comes your name. People need to know how to communicate with you. I remember as a 9-year-old having to read a list of names, Jack, Henry, Samantha, and then this one came up. And this was the first time I'd seen this name, and it has an accent there, which is going to make you nervous to begin with. And I had to read this out with no context. And obviously, Siobhan was the sort of the best effort I made. And then so I said, no, it's Siobhan. It's like, that's not Siobhan. I don't spell well, and I wouldn't even spell it that way. But obviously it is. And so making sure that names are understood and can be said and be appreciated is so important. LinkedIn provides an opportunity for you to do that, right? So this doesn't happen on the desktop version. This is only something that you can do on the LinkedIn app right now. But if you go to edit your intro, you can record your name in your own voice. And it's so important, right? If imagine that you are going to a job interview and the interviewer and the hiring manager can pull up your LinkedIn profile and hear you say your name. They are going to be much more confident and comfortable introducing you to the interview environment. You're going to be more comfortable because they got your name right and you don't have to correct them. I can always check on someone's name time and time again so I get it right. And if I don't, haven't spoken to someone for 6 months, I know how to say their name again. I worked at Disney for a while and everyone got to wear the nice name badges with their name on, which I found really great because I'd never remember anyone's name until I saw their badge. This is just another way to make those relationships that you're building with people comfortable and confident. So I highly recommend taking advantage of this particular feature. And then when you've recorded your name, it will feature on the desktop version of LinkedIn and on the mobile one. You'll see the speaker icon there and you can click on it. Do encourage everyone, staff and students and postdocs to do this so that everyone has the opportunity to really appreciate who you are and have that sort of name ready to go. A new thing that LinkedIn has now rolled out are pronouns. So many of you probably have pronouns in your name and you may have just typed your name and then typed your pronouns after your name, but now there's a designated spot where you can include your pronouns. I had to use these stock images because a few days ago, I didn't have this feature active on my profile. It wasn't even there to edit. And then I tested it last night and lo and behold, I could now do it, right? So I just went in to edit this section. There's a pronoun section and you can put custom pronouns in there. And then it becomes separate from your name, right? So your name is your name. You can see here my speaker icon and then my pronouns after that, right? So it's a really easy thing to do and you can go ahead and add those. So not much to talk about there, but it's quick and easy to make those changes. A new feature that LinkedIn has been described, it's called cover stories, and it's been described as the Harry Potter effect. The pictures and photos in Harry Potter, they move, right? The images move inside them. Not this way, because this is super creepy, but I found this image and now, because I found it, I have to share it with you. But the version of that LinkedIn uses is really about sort of giving you an opportunity to brand yourself within a 30-second period with something verbal and live and a real live image, right? So I'm going to switch from my presentation to my real LinkedIn profile. I want you to keep an eye on my photo that I've identified here. So let's go over here. I'm just going to refresh this page, keep an eye on my face there. And here I am. Now, this is just a silent 2 to 3 second promo of what happens. And when you look at someone else's profile, you'll see there'll be a little dot here. But, I can pull up my view, my cover story. I haven't played the sound here, so you can't hear it. I can mute it. So this is just my 30-second introduction where I can talk about myself so people can get a sense of who I am, what I'm interested in. This is the way of the future in terms of what employers are looking for, right? They're looking for people to be able to, be comfortable in a video environment and presenting themselves in different ways. So, practicing this and practicing being visual and being video-esque in the way that you're doing things is so important. The challenge right now is that you can only record this on your mobile phone. So it took me about 30 minutes to figure out a way to stop my phone from shaking as I was holding it. And it's a one-take deal. You can't do an edited video, which is frustrating if you want to sort of get things right. But it is going to be an important sort of growth area, I think, of making yourself become more alive based on the sort of the video aspects of what's going on. The URL is an also quick fix a thing that you can do. So the URL is what you give to people, the link you give to people to take them to your profile, minus Joseph Barber, PhD. Why? Because, well, all the other Joseph Barbers were taken up. But the PhD is actually an important part of my brand. It's been critical to all the roles that I've had thus far. I wanted to make it out there, or make it a part of that URL. If you don't customize your URL, you end up with these random numbers and letters here that don't really represent your brand, obviously, and it just sort of looks messier. So it's a really easy to fix to go through, customize your URL. You would just go to your edit settings again, and up here on the right-hand side, you can personalize that, see what's available to you, decide if you want to make it more than just your name. But it's a really great and easy thing to do to sort of make your brand look nice and clean. These are all sort of these standard things that you have to sort of get across, but they don't necessarily tell me anything about the type of person that you are in terms of the professional thing. So the who you are starts to come into play in the headline here, the thing that comes after your name, right? So here I'm in the engaging, future-focused Senior Associate Director at Career Services. If you don't edit this is usually defaults to your job title that you've listed in your professional experiences, which sometimes isn't that descriptive. I put engaging here because I also teach a lecture or a course up at Hunter College in New York. A lot of the feedback that I got from students at the end of the semester is that they found the lectures and the courses very engaging. So I thought I should own that. I'm going to use that as part of my brand. People say that about me, I'm going to say it about myself, and I threw it in there. Future focused, obviously I want to think about changing things and innovation. So those are the types of things that I did there. What do students do and postdocs do? Well, they tend to default to either that default setting, which tells them what they are, or they put something that's not very helpful. Like student at University of Pennsylvania is not really descriptive. It doesn't give the reader any sense of what type of student, graduate, undergraduate, what level, any of those things. Second year graduate student, is second year better than first year? Is second year worse than third year? So some of these things aren't really descriptive of the skills, the experiences, the character of the professional version of the person who's presenting themselves. I did a quick look at the number of associate directors or people with associate director in their title, and administrative assistants and administrative coordinators at Penn, and there's lots of them, right? And you can see here just a sample snapshot of the ones that I brought out. Some of them are slightly more descriptive, some of them are not. Now these are all accurate, right? So there's nothing wrong with having your job title here, but you're not going to be in this job forever, right? This is a part of your career development. And so sometimes just telling people what you are right now misses the opportunity to tell people about the skills that you could bring to your next role. It misses the opportunity to tell people about all the skills that you use in your current role. And so there are alternative ways that you can sort of think about, updating this headline to be more engaging about what it is that you bring. These are headlines that I stole from Penn staff. I was just looking through and I picked out a few that jumped out here. Some of you may see yourself here, which is great. They're all, they have descriptions of the job and the role sometimes, but they sometimes add more, right? And I think it's that more, the strategist and advisor, the restless innovator, building community, right? These are all sort of more visual versions of skills that can be applied in multiple roles, not just the one that you're in. So as you're thinking about, how to, picture yourself, the headline is one great way of beginning to do that. And again, you have about 3 lines to do that. You can go ahead and edit that, put anything you like. Changing it up every now and again to reflect new versions of yourself is perfectly fine. That's what I did at this semester. At the beginning of the semester, this is what I look like in the top left-hand corner. And then I decided to change it to the right. And rather than just being engaging, which could mean lots of things, I'm engaging communicator, right? So that's the skill. And creative leader, that's sort of the future focus. And then I decided to own this whole chicken thing, right? My PhD is in animal behavior in chickens. I have a general editor of a book about chickens. I decided to make that all part of my brand moving forward. And I was really happy with this. And I shared this new profile with my wife, who looked at it on her iPad. And when she pulled it up on her iPad, this was a screenshot that she sent. Unfortunately, my head is now completely located in this chicken's butt, which is not ideal, but I'm gonna keep it there for the time being. Beyond the tagline, then, I think the next sort of hardest part of the profile is the summary section, right? So your photos there, how people should say your name, the flavor, your main takeaways, and then you have all of these options here to think about ways to present yourself. And I have a very long one here and includes lots of things about me. It's lots of aspects of my backgrounds intersecting together, but that's kind of my takeaway, is that I'm not just one thing, I'm all these things. And everyone has their own story to tell. It's going to be hard in our limited time today to really talk about how best to write this, but I'm going to give you some sort of general guidelines that I think might be helpful. I think first person is really critical, right? So if I have my narrative that says Joseph Barber is a restless innovator and a chicken extravaganza person, the question that I have when I'm reading those bios, although that sort of version of the summary, is who's the narrator, right? Who's saying this about Joseph Barber? Because Joseph Barber really should be saying this about himself. So I think you need to take ownership of this. This is like your introduction as if you're in the room with someone, and I statements I think are much more powerful. It's hard to write these summary statements if you don't know what your takeaways are. So it's going to be really important to think about what you want people to walk away with as you're writing this, because if you don't know what they are, they're not going to have much of a clue in terms of what they should take away from that. So spend time to think about what you want your takeaways to be, and then create a narrative around that and make it sound like you. I think sometimes I've seen very formal ones that don't really sound like the person that I know from interacting with that person, and that's okay. But I think you also want to be yourself, and you also want to bring your own personal energy to this experience. As you're writing a profile or creating your LinkedIn profile, you may have your career next steps in mind. Within Penn, beyond Penn, doesn't really matter. Think about how you might want to craft your narratives to that future audience as well as to your current one, so that you can always be seen as someone who's moving forward, someone who can offer something to the next role, the next opportunity as well. And then make sure that what you're doing here really matches, what you're saying about yourself really matches how you're talking about yourself in the other sections in your profile, right? If you have a summary section or even a headline that talks about being a restless innovator, but there's nothing about innovating in the rest of your profile, that's a disconnect. So there are many ways that you can sort of do that as you're thinking about that, right? So your brand is going to be based on what you tell people. It's going to be based on what you show people. So you might link to a blog post or a presentation. And it's also going to be linked to what people say about you. And this is where those recommendations come into play on LinkedIn as really great things, right? So this is Maren Wood, one of my contacts. What I've done here is I've pulled out what I would say are the keywords that Maren has created. She's a strategic thinker, a problem solver, an empowerer. I made up that word, but it seemed to be the good word. She's passionate, she's funny, she's encouraging, she's down to earth. These are the words that she has used to demonstrate what she is. Now, I could take her at her word and say, great, this is what I believe you to be as well. But if I look at her recommendations, the things that people have written about her, first of all, she has 12, which is great. Lots of people want to say good things about her. And I could recommend Maren on LinkedIn, and I could ask Maren to recommend me. These are the options that you have. But if we take a sort of a closer look at some of these recommendations, you can see that each of these speak to those keywords that Maren has identified, right? So my journey from a scared, imposter syndrome-ridden visiting faculty member to a more confident, enthusiastic experience wouldn't have been possible without Maren's expert advice. They're empowered, they're encouraged, supported by honest feedback, right? It's down to earth. It's meant to be helpful and sort of realistic. If I jump down to the bottom one, Maren was not only a ton of fun to work with, I truly enjoyed the time I got to spend with Maren, right? So funny, it's hard to say that you're just funny if no one else thinks you're funny, but someone here does think that, right? So all of these things are part of the narrative that Maren can then weave into her profile. So think about this for yourself, right? Think about making sure that you have conclusions, and then think about how you can get insight from other people and input from other people to really support that narrative. That's going to be so important. So those are the things that I think you can do quickly to your profile right now to sort of play around with, presenting yourself in the best way possible. Some of these things might take you more time to figure out how you want to do it. Some of these things evolve over time, but they're all things that are fairly easy to do. The last few minutes of time that we have together, I want to just show you some things that we often talk about at Career Services in terms of engaging with students and postdocs with LinkedIn, things that you can be doing, things that you might want to be doing anyway. So again, I'm going to skip over to my LinkedIn profile. Obviously, what you can do is if you visit the University of Pennsylvania page, there's lots of information here that's fun to play around with, right? So when this loads up here, you can see that there is a sort of a what's happening at Penn today in terms of joining and being promoted. There's co-worker content, which is great. If we click up here, there's 18,000 employees on LinkedIn that have, at Penn who have LinkedIn profiles that LinkedIn is grouped together. I can search through these 18,000 people based on a variety of different filters here in terms of where they're located, where they worked before they got here, the schools that they went to, the roles that they play, even their job title. That's how I found all the associate directors, right? So these are interesting filters to use. I can also search by keyword through these different people, right? So I did a search of University of Pennsylvania still. There are 21 results who are Penn employees or people who are affiliated with, so that's students and postdocs, depends on how they set up their profile. They're all doing things with chicken salmonella and chicken egg yolk and all sorts of things. If we look here, Rachel doesn't seem to be connected with Penn, but if I click on her profile, she's head of people at this organization, tap send, but she's also an alumni admissions interviewer down here. So that's why she's picked up here. So that's just a really easy thing to do. You might want to search through the employees to find people who share commonalities with you in terms of their work experience or skill sets or whatever that looks like. I'm going to jump back to the University of Pennsylvania page. This is the tool that we use most often with students, right? It's the alumni finder tool, right? So under Penn and then the alumni tab here, it's going to show me the 164,000 alumni and current students that have LinkedIn profiles that LinkedIn has grouped together, right? And this is an interactive table that shows me where they live geographically, where they work. So mostly at Google, Amazon, and Facebook, and Microsoft apparently now. If I click over here, it shows me the role that they play in their organizations, what they studied. These aren't direct matches to Penn degrees, but they are sort of generalized ones that you can sort of find a match to, what they say they're skilled at and how you're connected to that. And again, I can select any of these options, but I could also do a keyword search at any point in time. So as our theme suggests, I'm going to click on chicken here, 178 alumni. And that's going to show me people who have backgrounds with chickens that might be of interest as I'm thinking about, who I might want to see working in the world of chickens in terms of whatever that looks like. So this is just another way of beginning to sort of break down and find connections with this population. For students, it's so valuable to find people like them doing things that they're interested in, or finding companies that they are, that they have an interest in. So there's lots here that can be gleaned and lots here that you might want to use in your own roles too. Now, interestingly, for my Wharton colleagues, Wharton has sort of its own page on LinkedIn, right? So even though it's part of the University of Pennsylvania, here they have their own sort of alumni tool here, which is the same thing. So there may be overlap between these two populations, or there may not be. I'm not quite sure how LinkedIn does that. But again, if we want to know where the chicken people are here, you can see that someone works at the chicken or egg consulting firm, or used to in the past. And that just gives you a way to navigate through this and find people that's out there. So again, a really interesting way of breaking down different populations that exist through Penn: employees, students, alumni, searching through them, using this interactive tool to really find answers to questions. I'm looking for someone who works at this company, who's connected to Penn, who has this background, right? These are all things that can happen. I'm sure many of you know about LinkedIn Learning and the things that you can do there. This is freely available to Penn staff. You can just log in through here. You can see the Penn Shield is up there telling me that this is a Penn benefit, as it were. You can search for pretty much anything. I did search for chickens, and there are actually no courses on chickens on LinkedIn, so I can't show you there. But you could even search for LinkedIn as a course, right? It's a bit meta to learn about LinkedIn on LinkedIn, but this would be a great way of further utilizing this platform for the work that you're doing. The last thing I want to show you is a couple of things that I stumbled across. It's under the jobs function. There's a couple of things that are interesting here. First of all, LinkedIn does allow you to do some sort of credentialing or badging in terms of skills assessment. So if you have an interest in demonstrating your ability to do Microsoft Access, and you want to demonstrate that this is a skill that you have, you can do this. I did this for PowerPoint. I use PowerPoint too much for everything. And I was in the top 5% of LinkedIn users. The questions weren't that hard, and the actual badge itself is not that prominent on my profile. So I don't think that's as critical or as helpful as it could be. The other thing I found here was the interview prep tool, which does more if you have a LinkedIn Premium account, which I'm not suggesting that you do. But this is something that you can do to record answers to practice questions and then be able to share that with people in your network for feedback, right? So what is your greatest strength? I did a practice interview set here. Looked like it's late at night in the middle of nowhere, but again, I'm just going to mute this. This was my answer to the, what is your greatest strength question. You can watch as it's scanning how many words I use or my pitch, and it's going to give you sort of gentle feedback on that. And then I can request feedback. I can send it to people that I might know in my network and say, hey, what do you think about this? Do you think this is a good answer to this type of question? So there's lots of ways to sort of play around with this that might be helpful to you. We have tools, similar tools that we use for engaging with our student population at Career Services. This is something obviously that everyone can use on LinkedIn right now. And so hopefully as you're sort of going through this LinkedIn experience, you're finding ways to use these resources that are popping up all the time.